Welcome to Stingray Tom's Florida and a dip into the archives. Stingray Tom's archives contain thousands of documents related to tourism in the Sunshine State. All of the documents are available to view online at stingraytom.com. Today I'll be looking at Florida's remarkably diverse collection of botanical gardens. They're some of the oldest and most popular attractions in the state. While there are obvious similarities between the gardens, I'll be zeroing in on what makes each unique and worthy of a visit. The great news is that many of Florida's historic gardens continue to operate and are possibly even more beautiful today. It's likely that the earliest public garden in the state was created just west of Orlando in the small settlement of Gotha. In 1896, Henry Neerling created the Palm Cottage Gardens. Primarily designed as a research facility by one of the leading botanists in the country, it also became popular with locals and visitors to the area. Neerling would work at Palm Cottage Gardens throughout the early 20th century, although in 1919 he would add another garden to the state. Located much further south in Naples, the new facility would have a focus on tropical plants that struggled in the more temperate Orlando climate. The new facility was called Neerling's Tropical Garden and Arboretum and was likely the second botanical garden open in the state. Both of the gardens operated at the same time. Neerling's focus in his valuable work was investigating tropical plants from around the world and developing new varieties that could yield commercial benefits. Neerling's contributions to the field of botany directly or indirectly influenced all subsequent botanical gardens in the state. The two gardens would close in 1929 due to Neerling's death. However, they would both be resurrected. The Naples site would become Caribbean Gardens in 1954 and later transform into the Naples Zoo. Palm Cottage Gardens in Gotha would begin operating again some 80 years later as the Neerling Gardens, albeit on a smaller scale. That's how botanical gardens got their start in Florida. So let's move on to see some of the brochures created for Florida's botanical gardens, along with a few views of their flowers and plants as we travel through time around the Sunshine State. Bok Tower Gardens is often thought of as the most important garden in the state. Of course, it's rightly famous for its Carillon Tower, but its grounds contain one of the largest botanical gardens in the country, comprised of 250 acres. Not all its land is gardens, but because of its size, Bok Tower Gardens provides dramatic views for visitors that aren't matched elsewhere. Located in the Central Highlands, the gardens skip tropical plants and focus heavily on more temperate Florida natives such as azaleas, palms, and pine trees. One of Bok's most fascinating areas is the carnivorous plant garden, a rarity in Florida gardens. There are plenty of water features, including a reflecting pool at the base of the tower, as well as a wonderful kids' explorer garden. The park is also a bird sanctuary for native species that are happy to call Bok Tower Gardens home. McKee Jungle Gardens is one of the oldest and most beautiful in the state. Opened the same year as the much larger Bok Tower Gardens, McKee does the tropical foliage thing, as Vero Beach is just southern enough. McKee was famous for the dense pathways that allow visitors to lose themselves in the greenery of palms, palmettos, bamboo, and other large and remarkable plants. There are paths that rarely get sun, and there is an area with follies, odd and whimsical structures, placed among the plants that will delight both young and old. McKee is located on US 1 and shouldn't be missed. Ravine Gardens State Park in Palatka may be the most out-of-the-way botanical garden in Florida, but when it opened in 1933, it had three things going for it. It was just off US Route 17, one of the newest paved highways heading south. It wasn't very far from the popular tourist town of St. Augustine, and it was next to the St. Johns River. The town of Palatka was an important port for passenger steamboats traveling between Jacksonville and points such as Silver Springs and Sanford. St. John steamboats were a popular way to travel into the center of the Sunshine State. Containing two ravines that are around 120 feet deep with steep banks, A small, spring-fed river keeps the bottoms of the ravines filled with vegetation. The gardens and the road that encircles the ravines provide unusual views of plants and animals. Late winter is the best time to visit, as this park is more associated with azalea blossoms than any other. Sunken Gardens is now owned by the city of St. Petersburg, but it got its start about 100 years ago. Its owner was a man with a dream, to drain a lake and make it a fantastic garden. Remarkably, it worked. Aptly named Sunken Gardens, nearly the entire place was below the level of the surrounding neighborhood, which created a microclimate that keeps cold weather at bay, just enough to allow some plants to thrive that would struggle in the backyards of the garden's neighbors. Opened to the public in 1935, it quickly became a popular attraction and continues to be so today. At 4 acres, it's easily the smallest garden on the list, yet it's one of the most beautiful and interesting in the country. Winding garden paths take visitors down to the bottom of the former lake, where there are waterfalls, ponds, and beautiful lawns, as well as tons of flowers. Cypress Gardens got its start in 1936 with beautifully lush gardens on the shore of a cypress tree-lined lake. In World War II, they added water ski shows to thrill servicemen on leave who were stationed nearby. But the gardens, probably the best groomed and cared for in the state, continued on. Visitors could view them on pathways and on small canal boats. Added to the gardens were living sculptures of local teen ladies in antebellum-esque dresses, making Cypress Gardens the most photographed spot in the state. Today it's been transformed into Legoland, a kid-oriented theme park, but its historic gardens are still there and are protected by law. Venetian Gardens is an open city park in Leesburg. It isn't really a botanical garden these days, as it lacks a great deal of flowering plants and other unusual foliage, but with a location on the west side of Lake Harris and with several canals surrounding small ornamental islands, it's a great place to visit. Each of the islands is connected by pedestrian bridges, and locals feed the wildlife in the park, so they're quite friendly. Built in 1938, Venetian Gardens has had its ups and downs over the years, but recent renovations have given it a great new look. Sarasota Jungle Gardens was one of the first attractions in Sarasota. Opened in 1940, its southern location meant it could focus on tropical plants. At 10 acres, it's on the small size, but as can be seen by others, such as Sunken Gardens and Selby Gardens, a lot can be done in a small area. For many years, the gardens have featured animals as well as exotic plants and allow the feeding of very tame flamingos and ibis, as well as several other animals. The gardens are beautiful with old banyan-style trees dwarfing the visitors. While the highlight for most visitors is probably the meet and greets with parrots, cockatoos, and macaws, there are plenty of beautiful views available throughout the lush gardens. It's one not to miss. Tiki Gardens, which operated between 1950 and 1990, was a bit of an outlier in Florida's botanical garden history. Its theme was specifically Polynesian, and its gardens were a mixture of South Seas foliage as well as large rock sculptures that supposedly represented the gods of the Polynesian people. The gardens were certainly beautiful and had a distinct look. Today the property is a parking lot for Gulf Beach access. Developed on Nerling's Tropical Garden and Arboretum in Naples in 1954, Caribbean Gardens took up where the famous botanist had stopped about 25 years before. The botanical gardens they developed focused heavily on tropical vegetation, and for a time they had famous trained ducks in a show titled Duck Vaudeville. Later, big cat trainer Jungle Larry arrived, and Caribbean Gardens would evolve into a small zoo. Today, it's the Naples Zoo at Caribbean Gardens and still has an area of gardens, which is dedicated to both generations of the original gardens, Nerling and Caribbean. It's also one of the finest small zoos in the country. Known today as another one of the best zoos in the country, as well as having fantastic roller coasters and other thrill rides, it may seem odd to include Busch Gardens on this list, but it comes by its name legitimately. In 1959, the Busch family created a beautiful garden around the brewery in Tampa. Already popular as a factory tour, the gardens added an additional element, one for moms and kids. The gardens quickly expanded with the addition of animals, a dwarf village populated by garden gnomes, and the Swiss House restaurant. Even though Busch Gardens today is radically different than 6 years ago, the tradition of beautiful landscaping is a favorite feature of the park. With the 1888 Leu Maisel house as its centerpiece, Leu Gardens in Orlando is a botanical garden that should be better known. Donated to the city in 1961 by Harry Leu, there is a fun mixture of formal and informal areas. Known for its camellias, azaleas, and roses, the garden also has an excellent selection of bamboo, cacti, and one of the busiest butterfly gardens around. Add to that the historic landmark house, which is open for tours, plus the fascinating Maisel family graveyard, and you've got a botanical garden unlike any other in the state. Washington Oaks Gardens State Park is really two parks in one. Divided by the Beach Road A1A, this state park contains Atlantic Beach access as well as gardens on the intercoastal side. Less formal than many others, it's attractive nonetheless and pleases all of its visitors. Opened in 1964, Washington Oaks is like several of Florida's gardens, such as Leu Gardens and Selby Gardens, in that it began as a private family garden. It grew from there, and eventually the state took it over. Marie Selby Botanical Gardens is yet another smaller garden. Located on Sarasota Bay, it opened to the public in 1975, though it had been operating for many years as a private garden and research center. While Selby has the usual gardens containing palms, banyans, and oaks, along with a succulent garden, a great children's area, and a Florida native garden, the park also has a couple significant differences than other Florida gardens. Its bayfront has a remarkably extensive mangrove ecosystem that visitors can walk through on boardwalks. Plus, it's the home of one of the best collections of orchids, bromeliads, and other air plants. Located in Old Sarasota, it's not far from the Sarasota Jungle Gardens. A day spent visiting both would show just how different botanical gardens can be. Located in Largo, the Florida Botanical Gardens is one of the newest in the state. Opened in 2000, it's far younger than the rest on this list. It's still a great place to explore, however. Its highlights include a fascinating cactus and succulent garden, a fruit tree orchard containing many varieties of tropical fruits including banana, papaya, avocado, and citrus, a beautiful mosaic tile patio area, and much more. Best of all, it's free and perfect for picnicking. So that's a quick overview of just 14 of Florida's botanical gardens. There are so many more that I simply don't have time to cover, including ones lost to history, such as Oriental Gardens in Jacksonville, the Masterpiece Gardens in Lake Wales, and Dupree Gardens in Land O'Lakes. Others, such as Parrot Jungle and Silver Springs, had other attractions that overshadowed the landscaping, while still others are smaller parks, often only known by locals. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Florida garden is. Is it part of one of the many state parks, or is it some of the stunning gardens at Walt Disney World? Regardless, let me know. As always, thanks for watching Stingray Tom's Florida. Don't forget to give it a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time I present a new video. If you want to see more of the brochures in this video, check out stingraytom.com. They're available for viewing along with thousands more. Thanks again.